concerning the Grove Park Canal Access Project. I think Matt and his group put together answers, as well as our staff involvement, answers to many, if not all, the questions that the commissioners had posed in the last couple of meetings about the Canal Dock Access Project. They did put in some new figures, so the cost of the project is higher. And fortunately, they've been continue to get grants, and so they're moving up that way. So, what I'm looking at here is, if there's any further discussion, please let's have it, but a motion and a second for a vote to move forward with the city's support and commitment to this project, unless there's any unforeseen situation that happens that defers this in the future. But this would be the commitment of the city to move forward and allow the LRCIA and their consultant to move forward, continue the design features, as well as go out for the bid in the fall, and hopefully, once they receive the firm bid, go forward towards construction.
Mayor, unless there's any other further discussion, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve going forward with the next phases of the Canal Access Project.
I second that motion.
And let me, if you wouldn't mind, you may want to redo the motion to not just the next phases, but I think the commitment towards the project itself, because they're going to be going forward.
Can I ask, Mr. Mayor, just for clarity's sake, is it a motion to move forward with the anticipation of supporting the completion of the project, barring some unforeseen circumstances, or is it a motion that's limited to certain phases? Because I think we want clarity. Last time it was not completely clear. So I want to know if this is a motion that's focused on completing the project or something less than that.
Well, let me ask a question. Didn't I just ask this question earlier in the day about what the specifics of the path forward? And I don't think the answer was the entire project, or did I mishear?
No, a different, and that's my same thing too. I think we need to define path forward, which again, Tony, you brought up before.
Since there's a motion, can I make an amended motion, and then, if we potentially vote on my, and I hope this answers your question. I'd like to make an amended motion that we approve the Grove Park Canal Access Project.
So that's a motion to amend the current motion, which would clarify what moving forward means. So you need a second to that amendment to the motion, if anybody.
Second.
There's a second now to the motion. So what you'll be voting on is not the complete motion, which is not only to move forward, but to completion. This is just to amend the motion to clarify that the motion would be, if this motion's adopted, the motion would be to vote in favor of completion of the Canal Access Project.
That's not what I heard.
That's what I intended with my amended motion.
Well, and I
Now we
hear,
have a second. Now we'll have discussion.
okay, I hear Commissioner Schlosser's, that's the motion. But what I'm trying to align is this motion is not aligned with the question and the answer I just got at our previous meeting.
That may have been my mistake on the answer.
That's what I'm asking. Did
But-
I mishear?
I may have missaid
Okay.
or misstated. It is because we've been going back and forth on this for the last year or so, and it's really, we've been going through the steps, and what I would prefer, and it's up to the commissioners, but I would prefer to not have to go through this every time we have a new step in. I mean, barring any unforeseen circumstances. And so allowing him to continue with the design work so he can put together a bid package for outside vendors that they can bid on the project, then we can get a bid, we can approve the bid and move forward with the actual construction and completion.
Couldn't it be just considered as simple as we support this project? Because we've never had that vote before. We've never said that before. We support the project, period. That it doesn't mean that we're obligating monies to it or anything. That's a separate conversation, as we said at the last meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
But
this,
aren't-
this,
aren't
this
we-
motion, I don't think is obligating any monies towards it either.
Correct.
This is just showing the commitment of the city to the project so that they can continue to raise funds and they can continue with the drawing package and to solicit bids and to select a contractor, and then, we'd have to approve the selection of that contractor.
Glenn, could you read the motion that's in front of us again, please?
So I've not actually written a motion. I don't know if Ann has the ability to.
Okay,
Or
well,
read, but-
I'm just asking, based on what Commissioner
still-
Mills
so
was
I think
asking for.
How
So
I interpret, how I heard the motions, plural,
Right.
is that it's so broad and general that it could apply to anything. So I guess I'm looking for,
Well, just the nuance that I hear, and I don't really want to belabor this as much as the rest of us probably don't, it's the difference between commitment and completion. To me, when you use the word completion, that is very clear that if the city were to have to step in and say, we've got a differential here of 50 grand or 100,000 or whatever, it would appear to me
Would obligate,
I don't know if it would obligate us, Mayor, but to me, we are telegraphing that obligation. If, which I think was the first motion, it is the commitment to the project, it feels different because there still are some unknowns, but I think we're getting way ahead of the game here with all the good intentions that were talked about today. The fundraising is on track. There's just a few little unknowns that might surface during construction, let's say.
If it was to go to completion, if I'm happy to amend the motion to clarify, and then we can vote, and if nobody agrees, that's fine, to completion. So does the motion that I have on the table, which amended Commissioner Sheffers, is, my motion is that we approve the Grove Park Canal Access Project. Does that not imply to completion, or do we need additional language if that's not clear to the points brought
I
up?
think it does, but what I'm hearing from Commissioner Sharp is that there's a hesitation because of the possibility of committing resources. So a motion could be to approve the project to completion, barring any necessity that the city be required or
That's
asked
not
to-
the intent of my motion. My motion's to, I mean, and everybody can disapprove it, but the intent of my motion was to complete the Grove Park Canal Access Project.
even if that requires funds from the city, because
But we still have to approve the budget, so the budget could be
as long as
disapproved.
that's clear, I think maybe you.
How would you clarify that then to
I think there's a commitment to completion, except in the instance where the city is required to produce financial resources. At that point, there'd be required another vote of the commissioners to commit funds.
Well, and I'll tell you why it sprang to mind is when Matt mentioned when the bids go out, you may get a bid back.
Yeah.
That if you want to do the project, it's not necessarily going to come in at what the anticipated costs are. That's the only nuance.
and so maybe we need to amend the motion or start from scratch and go towards the city's commitment to the project, and barring any unforeseen circumstances, the completion.
I think the motion makers and seconders should take
Yeah.
previous motions off the table and start over again, but that has to be a formal
Safe to
process.
start with
with
the
me.
amendment. Will the amender take their motion off their amendment off the table?
I will take my amended motion off the table.
And will the,
Take my original motion off the table.
okay, so we're back to no motion on the table.
And so I guess the motion we're looking for would be the motion to approve the city's commitment to this project, and barring any unforeseen circumstances, the completion.
I don't like the
Or-
commitment. I
So
mean,
take
we
off the
commit.
barring. I mean,
I
I
don't
think
like
it
the
is the
commitment.
commitment. because there has not been a commitment up to this point in time for the city to say, yes, move forward. And it's always been everybody outside the city.
I'd like maybe a proposal that takes into account what the mayor and the other commissioners have said, that basically we approve the project, but subject to specific budget approval going forward, something along those lines to address the concerns from Commissioner Sharp. How would that be worded, Glenn?
And you're suggesting approval to completion?
Yes.
So the motion could potentially be that the city commissioners approve the project with the expectation of completion, except that in the instance that, I'm trying to make it short and brief, except that any commitment of funds from the city would require an additional vote of the commissioners.
I think that's the bottom line at the moment.
Would this be acceptable? Because that we're, a motion to approve the city's commitment to the Grove Park Canal Access Project, subject to any specific budget approvals.
I don't like the word commitment, personally. That's like, so we commit to clean air and clean water and everything else. So it's that, I mean, we approve the Canal Access Project to completion with the exception that any requirement for budgetary expenditures be approved specifically by the commissioners.
I mean, is that-
Commitment's so wishy-washy.
Is that what people are worried about, is the city having to put up money?
Well,
Or is it the project itself may not go through because the bids may be just too high and we say no, but we've already made the commitment to completion? Is that what you're looking at?
yes, because what I heard today was that from a maintenance standpoint, no funding from the city. That was very clear to me that LRC,
Not in the first 3 years.
correct.
Yes.
And maybe that partnership might go forward, who knows, down the road. And that the potential for use through vendors would be a different discussion at a different day. So I'm not hearing that there are any funds that we are committing or approving for this program that are for today.
Yeah, we are not.
We're not allocating any taxpayer funds, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, today, yep.
Right.
We're talking about a concept here, not a budget. And for gosh sake, this group has brought in almost $800,000 and we haven't even approved this. I mean, they're on a roll. We're moving toward a
That's
very successful
the commitment
project here.
to the city's approval of the project.
Why do you need the word commitment? Why don't we just approve the project subject to future? I don't understand. I just need somebody to explain to me
fine
why
with
there's
just
commitment.
approving-
Just approve the
Approving the
project,
project.
subject to future.
But, I mean, why do you even
Budget,
have to put subject?
Well, I'm trying to paraphrase. but-
Supportive. That's simple.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the motion is the city is supportive of moving forward with this project. Does that?
I guess,
Is-
when I guess
and
if
is
I'm sitting
that-
out there.
and is that
I'm
enough?
wondering if we should spend money on additional things, I think I would want, if I were in their shoes, a better sense that, I would say approve, the idea of just approval to move forward, well, how much further? Like, at what point we have to come back? So,
That's commitment to the project itself.
so what I had written down, and we can parse it a little bit, but it would be a motion to approve the Canal Access Project to completion, except that the commitment of city funds to the project would be subject to an additional vote of the city commissioners. So it's yours, it would be your,
I'm good with
it
that.
would be your message to them, I think, that unless you come to us and ask us for money, we're going to support and you're going to get the project done and you've got the approval that you need from the city commissioners, but for money.
Commissioner Sheffer is
Can I
ready to
borrow
make that.
Sure.
You want me to just do it, Steve?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, one of the reasons we're doing this is for the LRCIA. Can we ask Mark Carter,
There you go.
put you on the spot? What would help you with going to those foundations? Do you want to be able to say, the city of Rehoboth Beach is supportive of this project? What beyond that do you?
Well, basically where we're at now is a lot of the funds that have been generated have come forth because of a partnership with the city and the organization. So grants like the ORPT grant, the funding that's set aside by DelDOT, the 300,000 towards the project and such, all of those type of funds are because there is a partnership that is going on. We've not asked the city for funds directly from, the city of Rehoboth. Here, we need money. We've asked for your hand and support to go after funds, and that's what we want to continue to do so. I think, to move forward, we need the support of the city. We need the city to say, yes, we're on board with this. We want to see this project come to fruition so that when we submit to Crystal and Longwood and a few organizations and such, they would, a letter from the city says, hey, we endorse this project. We're behind you and we're a partner with you. That I think would be most beneficial for the lack of a better term, the home stretch, if you will, on the fundraising.
Thanks, Mark.
So essentially, in a nutshell for me, you're seeking support of the city, seeking this project to be realized.
But it seems like the city solicitor's language is sufficient. Okay, so I'm going to try this one more time. This is why I don't do this very often. I make a motion to approve the Canal Access Project to completion, except that the commitment of city funds to the project would be subject to an additional vote of the city commissioners.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to what Steve just said. I don't want to mess it up.
Excellent.
But it's subject to so on and so forth. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say, this has been in the making for 10 years. I remember sitting with these gentlemen here 10 years ago at the inception of this project. So I wanted to commend them for their perseverance and commitment to this project. The CDP mentions the desire to create a second waterfront, and that's this area. If there were no water taxi, or it didn't happen one year or whatever, to me, it's still a viable project, I think. I have not been willing to obligate any money to the project. What I have from the beginning consistently, since this originally came up and has repeatedly come up, has been consistent in desiring transparency and noting what all the figures are, what the maintenance costs are. Have we dotted all our I's and crossed all our T's? And I think finally we have. For those that are not familiar with this project, if you go back and listen to our tape and video of the May 6th meeting and the June 21st meeting, I think you'll have an excellent overview of this entire project from beginning to end. And I would suggest you do that. Now this project's gone up to a little over $1 million. As of the last meeting, we talked about funding. Combination of funding of grants from the city is obtained, as well as the LRCIA obtained in the amount of $580,000, which left a balance of about $432,000-ish. And now with Representative Pete Schwarzkopf giving another $200,000, that puts them closer to $230-some thousand or so, or $250,000. I think that's very impressive. Again, I'm still not willing to obligate any city's money, but I think that's what at this point, but that's what the motion indicates. I do want to just reiterate one more time some of the things that give me a pause. And the greatest thing, or one of the things, is the liability. That I hope we have a good contract that points the finger to the engineers if the canal bank cracks, sloughs off, or whatever. That's a big concern of mine, because that is a steep bank there. The other things that I've expressed concern about are that we're putting so much in one area, the congestion, the lack of parking, And as I mentioned, the dollar figures that we might have to put up in the future. But I have not heard from my constituencies, essentially one way or the other, that they like it or hate it. In fact, I think most of the correspondence I got from constituencies was the previous session. What was that, 6 years ago? For instance, a man lives across the street that's an avid kayaker. He's dying for a kayak ramp to get in there. So anyhow, that's I've been supported from the beginning, and I think most of the answers are in front of us, and I will vote to support this.
Any other comments?
No, just to say, I've been supportive for many years on this project and participated some years ago, years before I was elected to the commission. And, it just becomes very clear to me that as a municipality, if we want to stay and continue to be competitive with all of the other beach communities up and down our coast, we know from research, we know from bringing in experts, urban planners that talk to us, that we have to continue to strive to be unique. We have to have unique quality to life here for residents, for businesses, for tourists. This access at Grove Park to the canal just adds to something that'll make Rehoboth Beach continue to be a unique community, a community people want to come to.
Thank you. Now, I know it's not on the agenda to allow citizen comment for this meeting because this is just a vote of the discussion that we had in the last. However, there's a gentleman that would like to say something briefly. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Walter Birmingham, 123 Hennepin Avenue. Reminiscent of pillows on Columbia Avenue. Mountains out at Silver Lake, which look very nice. And you're going to pass this. I hate saying this, but why not commit $400,000 to match their stuff and be done with it? Because otherwise, you're going to have to come back to another meeting to approve it anyway. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go down the commissioners. Commissioner Sheffer.
Aye.
Commissioner Mills.
Aye.
Commissioner Schlosser.
Aye.
Commissioner Sharp.
On behalf of creating a new experience in the West End of Rehoboth, I vote aye.
Commissioner Byrne.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, and motion carries. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting that together. Thank you all.